Hello and welcome to the Bot Box. Every so often there'll be a bot that's kind of heavily armoured. Admittedly, I don't think there were many, particularly in the early series, but falling straight into that category is this week's robot, Onslaught, a small silver-coloured box which was armed with a lifting scoop, had thick armour with exposed wheels. Admittedly, some of the armour was at risk of getting holes put in it, but still pretty thick. It also had a massive motor for the back wheels, which was larger than the house robot's motors. The motor in question was from a forklift and was a 1967 forklift motor, which was also exposed. Onslaught made its debut in Series 2 of Robot Wars and of course it had to run the gauntlet. I haven't talked about that for a while. Onslaught went for the left-hand route with the pits and the Sentinel and got off to a good start until it collided with the Sentinel. Onslaught got free but ran straight into Dead Metal, who, with the aid of the Sentinel, actually it was mostly the Sentinel, pitted Onslaught. Oops. But, travelling 10.5 metres along the course, they were safe and through to the trials, which that week was Skittles. Onslaught went into the barrels via Sergeant Bash, but once in the triangle drove round in circles and knocked down a bunch of barrels. Right at the end, Onslaught drove out of the triangle and argued with Sergeant Bash again, but with 57 barrels down, they were through. In fact, got the second most barrels down of any Skittles competitor, the most of course being kilohertz. So, Onslaught has got a fight against very Irish Harama Spikebot Nemesis, who'd put a kebab on their robot, vegetable kebab, in case it caught fire again. Onslaught drove into Nemesis early on and gave them a good shove, but drove under the pendulum in the perimeter patrol zone. Tangled with Dead Metal, escaped, rammed Nemesis and Shunt before pushing Nemesis into the pit. No fire. No burnt kebab. Just pitted robot. So in the heat final, Nemesis faced Wedge, Sawbot, Roadblock, the top seeds and defending champions. A big was that Onslaught did not move at all until Roadblock started pushing it, and Onslaught was leaking ominous smoke. Roadblock left the now burning Onslaught, the wiring had caught fire, with the house robots, and that was Onslaught out. Onslaught returned for Series 3 of Robot Wars, landing in Heat I, where it drew spiky, thwacky Axelbot Armageddon. Two separate words. Armageddon. Got that YouTube subtitles? Onslaught sent Armageddon to Sergeant Bash early on. Armageddon kept trying to escape Sergeant Bash, only for Onslaught to shove Armageddon straight back to the house robot. This cycle carried on until Armageddon's escape, its last escape, took it to the edge of the pit of oblivion. Onslaught couldn't get anywhere near Armageddon due to steering issues. Matilda freed Armageddon, but one last nudge from Onslaught sent Armageddon rolling nice and neatly into the pit. Next up for Onslaught was Wedge Lifter, Stuck Cutting Disc Wielder, Beast of Bodmin, the successor of Roadblock. Onslaught got off to a much better start this time round. Not that it could have got off to a worse start. Darting around the arena and getting nudges and lifts in on the Beast of Bodmin. Indeed, the two bots traded blows until eventually Onslaught attacked Beast of Bodmin at the wrong angle and turned itself over, which was when Dead Metal rocked up. Also, Onslaught did not have a self-writer at that point. Oops. Onslaught returned for Series 4 of Robot Wars, but we're not going to talk about the heat first, we're just going to talk about everything that happened in the order that it aired, which puts the heat last. Onslaught's first appearance was in the Sumo Basho, where it had to go up against Shunt. Onslaught went for Shunt's scoop, which is a dangerous tactic given that Onslaught is not a big physical size bot. It didn't go as badly as it could have. Onslaught stayed on the sumo ring, but once Onslaught got free, Shunt actually drove dangerously close to the edge of the ring. It was like part way to falling off. Onslaught took the opportunity to dart over, but it was not quite quick enough, and instead of shoving Shunt the rest of the way off the arena, Shunt got away and Onslaught fell off. Still, lasting 17.31 seconds, Onslaught came 4th overall and lasted the longest of those that did not survive the 4 minute or knock Shunt off the Sumo Basho ring. So, that's actually pretty good. So, on to the Southern Annihilator, where Onslaught faced Spikebot Spawn Scutter, Bulldozer Behemoth, Thwackbot Attila the Drum, Crusher Razor, and Lifter Axebot Vercingetorix. Well, I think I've talked about all of those apart from Razor. That's going to be a long one when that comes. Onslaught was out of focus early on, but it did get an attack in on Behemoth. When in focus again, Onslaught was attacking Behemoth again, but had to dodge Razor and went for Spawn of Scutter and Vercingetorix, in that order. Behemoth was next, but Spawn of Scutter turned Onslaught over. However, this was a new improved version of Onslaught. It had a self-righting mechanism, and used it just in time it managed to escape Razor. Onslaught went for Vercingetorix and got turned over again, but Onslaught self-righted a second time and went for Behemoth. Vercingetorix stopped dead, though, and they were the ones to go out. In the second fight, Onslaught's first target were Razor and Behemoth. Not afraid to go for the big names, this one. Onslaught then went out of focus, but got in focus just in time to attack Spawn of Scutter and Razor at the same time. Like I said, it's not afraid to go for the big guns. It took the pair to the flame pit before leaving them to Behemoth. Razor spent a lot of time on its side in this fight. Once righted, Razor attacked Onslaught, who just happened to be there, the wrong place, wrong time. But Onslaught's made of tough stuff and escaped. Indeed, it flipped Razor, got flipped, and self-righted. Onslaught had Spawn of Scutter on its tail until Onslaught ended up at a loose end, so attacked Razor whilst it was attacking Behemoth. Attila the Drum was Onslaught's next target, before Onslaught went out of focus, only appearing for the odd nudge on other robots. Spawn of Scutter went foot and died, and Behemoth wasn't looking too well either. It was Spawn of Scutter who went out, but Behemoth also went out because they had to withdraw due to internal issues. Some gears had seized up. So that meant they were down to 3. Onslaught ended up as Razor's target early on, so the two bots danced around each other, Onslaught trying not to get attacked. Onslaught did get an attack on Razor, but only narrowly dodged a Razor attack. A pushing war ensued, and Onslaught went for Attila the Drum. Indeed, Attila the Drum became Razor's target too. It was Onslaught who sent Attila the Drum to Sakilod, which signalled the end for Attila the Drum, but when East was called, because it had gone the full distance, Razor had got a hold of Onslaught, but it was Attila the Drum who went out. So Onslaught was now in the final of the Southern Annihilator, fighting Razor solo. Their message to the Razor team: be gentle. Gentlemen, that isn't fighting talk. Their tactics: run. Oh dear. However, running was actually going well for Onslaught, as it kept them away from Razor in the early stages of the final. It even hid behind Matilda. But Razor caught Onslaught and shredded a tire, which came off when Onslaught shoved Razor all around the arena. Which, whilst they won that part of the pushing war, they ended up losing overall because Razor was able to get more grip because it did not have a shredded tire as Onslaught had. Onslaught escaped and tried to stay away from Razor, but unfortunately failed to stay away from Matilda, and Matilda just quietly tipped Onslaught onto its side. So, that's Onslaught beaten, and Razor then absolutely trashed Matilda, which is going to wait for probably part 1 of Razor's episode. That one is definitely a 2-parter. Razor had too many fights for 1 episode. Onslaught, meanwhile, ended up spending some time with Sergeant Bash and Dead Metal and quietly got pitted. Now on to Onslaught's actual heat, and this is actually going to be very short. It was in Heat P of Series 4, unseeded, and it would have fought fellow lifter Terrible and the 18th seeds Ramus Cerberus. But whilst they got an introduction in the heat, and they got to, and it was mentioned about their motor being from 1967, and then being proud of how large the motor was, bigger than the house robots. Unfortunately, it wasn't the motor that let them down, it was the relays. A faulty relay popped up, there was no chance for them to fix their robot in time for the fight, and at the very last minute they had to withdraw. A flipper named VMAX took their place, and yes, what happened to VMAX will come up in its very own episode, but VMAX is an Onslaught, so I'm not talking about it here. Needless to say, Heat P could have been pretty bad for Onslaught because there was this rather nasty horizontal spinner in the heat named Hypnodisc. Anyway, Onslaught did return for Series 5, and once again they were in Heat I, where they drew Crusher, Lifter, Tetanus. Onslaught made itself hard to catch early on, which worked fine until Tetanus caught Onslaught and put them on their side. Now, once Tetanus eventually released Onslaught, because Onslaught spent quite a bit of time in the grip of Tetanus, not something you want to hear ever, Onslaught was in an awkward position and couldn't self-right properly. It's like when they needed their self-righter the most, it failed them, and Tetanus, once Onslaught's one attempt at self-righting failed, which would not leave Onslaught be. Onslaught got counted out. However, at the same time, Tetanus was on a CO2 jet, and it could not move from there either. So whilst Onslaught was being counted out, Tetanus was being counted out too, leading to a rare double knockout, though Onslaught was definitely out first. The judges as a result were called in, and they ruled in favour of Tetanus because it stayed alive longest and it had shown all the aggression. Not high damage fight, but it very definitely won. Onslaught never returned, but it's still out there. In fact, even if the team had returned, it would not have been with Onslaught. Though, interestingly enough, one of the team members showed up on Dutch Robot Wars linked to Tough as Nails. Interesting. Onslaught was a plucky bot, unafraid of its opponents no matter how much of a reputation they had. I mean, it went for Razor. And Razor could have just as easily done far more damage to Onslaught than it did. Razor could not put holes in Onslaught. Just dents. With kinder draws and less internal issues, see the relay and whatever burnt out ahead of the roadblock fight, it might have done better. Okay, it probably wouldn't have beaten roadblock, but you never know. However, Onslaught is the kind of bot that's easy to root for. There's never any shame in losing to champions, which is what Onslaught did. Okay, Roadblock didn't win Series 2 of Robot Wars, but they were already champions, and losing to defending champion, no shame there. Razor won the Southern Annihilator, no shame there. And throughout its time on Robot Wars, Onslaught had an underdog vibe. And of course, the 1967 forklift motor. I mean, that is an interesting detail with Onslaught. Besides, with the whole underdog vibe, how can you not like it? Who doesn't love an underdog? Anyway, who's next? Becky. Please be kind. What have we here? The spider. Okay. Until next week, Carlson244 out.